Are your plans organized? Are your thoughts organized? Is your business and your life organized? Hi, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business with the Think and Grow Rich philosophy espoused by Napoleon Hill with organized plans. And today we have a very special guest sharing with us her experiences and her stories and her comedy about organized, or maybe it's disorganized thoughts and plans. We are discussing this principle called the crystallization of desire into action. Napoleon Hill calls this the sixth step to riches. And we want to encourage you to comment, like, share this podcast, but especially subscribe to the YouTube channel so you have time to ask your friends and families to join you as you discuss with us through this platform the ideas, the thoughts, and the actions that are required to organize your plans. What I love about this principle, as he opens it up, he shares with us that we must have definite practical desires and definite practical plans to connect that desire with actions to turn it into a reality. But in order to do that, one of the first things you want to do is align or ally yourself with a group of individuals, I like to suggest, who are like-minded and like-spirited, that will be willing to hold you accountable in vetting these plans. Yes, individuals, I cannot stress this enough, because only iron can sharpen iron. When you talk about organizing your plans, I'd like to suggest in every single area of your life and also your business. Galen was sharing with me before the podcast started, we're going to introduce him, about walking through the Bible. That is an organized plan of actions in terms of what you can do when you talk about having a process and a system that is documented that will help you with the organization of your life and or your business. But of course, I could host this podcast all by myself. I won't do that, but instead, we're going to invite Galen Bingham to the podcast. Good morning, Galen. How are you this morning? This awesome morning. As a matter of fact, I'm in Louisville, and it is an exciting, exciting morning to be here with you this morning, and also LYNN Whitfield. How you doing?
Fantastic, fantastic. It's always great to discuss these principles, as I like to say, that allow you to have success on purpose. Any of us can have success accidentally, right? You just happen to walk into the right place at the right time and things work out. That's, successful, but, accidentally. This is how you have success on purpose. An organized plan in particular is that principle that talks about how do you create the plan? How do you organize the plan? How do you make sure that things are in place to give yourself the best chance at having success? One of the things I like to say is a dream without a plan is just a hallucination. So a dream without a plan is just a hallucination. You've got to have a plan in order to make your dream, give your chance at least a shot at having your dream come true. So I can't wait to have this conversation. Lynn is a great example of someone who has achieved a lot of things that people say, wow, I wish I could do that someday. But because she had an organized plan, she was actually able to make it happen. So can't wait to get into this conversation.
Well, let's do just that. Now, this big reveal. Come onto the podcast, LYNN Whitfield. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And while she's coming on, let's just share a little bit about my friend, LYNN. I like to call her LYNN Whitfield. She has been practicing law in South Florida area for over 40 years, starting in the public sector as an assistant state attorney. When she relocated to Palm Beach County in 1985, she began working with the Public Defender's Office and then served as assistant city attorney for the city of West Palm Beach. Now, I was there, Lynn, when all of this took place. Good morning, my good friend. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Ann and Galen. So good to join you this early Saturday morning. And believe me, folks, this takes organized planning for them to do this every Saturday morning.
Well, quite possibly it does. It's been years. Actually, thank you so very much, Lynn, for that compliment. But I don't want to take anything for granted for our guests who are listening live and also future guests that will listen to this podcast. Can you share with us a little about your story? And because I've known you for 40 years, yes, and later in the podcast, we'll talk about that journey in terms of these organized plans and how you can go back 40 years in this particular principle and look at your life and the plans that have been organized along the way with this philosophy. But take us back, Lynn, as far back as you would like to share with us, when did you begin to realize in your life before the business that there was such a thing as organized thoughts and organized plans in order to achieve a goal? Because I really want to go back to your early childhood, if you will, because I do know that that has had a great impact on the woman, the phenomenal woman that you are today. Can you take us back there?
Thank you, Ann, for that opportunity. And it's interesting that you say that because sometimes I think about, the Bible verse that said, man plans and God laughs. So I can't tell you really honestly when I first realized that there was a thing called organized planning or that you really had to plan. I think I just made decisions that I wanted to do things and tried to find out how you got to do them. As a young child, having lost my parents very young in my life, my mom when I was 6, my dad when I was 10, and then being with my stepmother who never really said anything good about me, never said I was able to do things, never thought I was going to amount to anything. So I guess then is when you start making that decision, one, I'm going to prove her wrong and how am I going to do it? And later when you look back, you see that that took some planning. You had to make some decisions that you're going to do well in school, going after scholarships for college and deciding what college to go to and how to get there. All of that did take some planning to be able to accomplish that. But it's not when you're in it at the moment and you're going through things like that, you don't really realize that that's what you're doing. So be honest, Ann, until I met you, although I
Oh,
had been through a whole lot of stuff by the time I met you in the mid 80s, but having but that is organized planning. When I think about it, one of the decisions I made in college when I decided to go to law school was I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer. But I decided I wanted to go to the state attorney's office first and learn how to put together a case so I know how to take it apart as a defense attorney. So I had to make plans to interview, to, where am I going to work? And then, life happens. So I didn't really have a choice on when I left the state attorney's office, but then you had to plan on what you're going to do with the rest of your life. So all along there had to been planning, even when I suffered, devastating suspension from the Florida bar. I still had to make plans and organize in order to be able to get back to where I am to have had a successful career practicing law after that. And I'm going to stop there.
wow, Lynn, you have just blessed us with this entire idea of starting with the first principle, which is desire. That's what you just did. You took us. Yes, thank you so much for that. You basically took us to where Napoleon Hill says that in order to have organized plans, go back to the first principle, which is desire. What is it that you desire? And like you just shared, you desired to become a defense attorney, and you planned, not really calling it organized plans in terms of this particular principle, but you had a desire in order to achieve that desire. And that's the point we really want to get across to all of you that's listening. Your plans, in order for them to be organized, they must be connected to a desire. What is it that you desire? And LYNN said she desired a certain profession and a path. But if she really went back, LYNN, and we can get into this after Galen does the 13 principles, but if you really go back to the thoughts you were having about wanting to become a defense attorney, what kind of money in your mind as a young person were you desiring to make? Had you thought about that at all? Have you had any of those thoughts?
No.
Okay.
When I was going through that process, money was not even an issue because I didn't even know how much defense attorneys made. You have to remember, I'm first generation professional in my family. I didn't even know criminal defense lawyers that were Black. So I had no concept. And at that point, money was not my concern. I knew I would make enough to live.
Wow, that's powerful. That is so powerful. And before I go further, I do want to come back, and for those of you that may have just joined us, we're sharing today on the podcast with LYNN, which is a friend. She's has a phenomenal career. She's going to talk about that, but she has appeared in the media as a legal commentator, has lectured to national, state, and local organizations. She has been honored by numerous national, state, and local organizations for her community service and service in professional organizations. And I almost wanted to add comedy. We'll get to that. So LYNN, we're going to go ahead to Galen, and Galen is going to share with us our 13 principles that, connect all of these thoughts together in an organized way. Galen?
Yeah, so again, I can't wait to get into this conversation. Before we share this video, I just want to express how appreciative we are to those who are watching on YouTube, those who are watching on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button underneath the video, just to let the algorithm know that there is something positive going on this particular channel, and that they need to check us out. So hit that thumbs up video, that thumbs up icon underneath the video. Yeah, this video really brings together all the principles of why we show up every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., 7 a.m. if you're in Central Time. But as you watch the video, think about all the things that you've heard LYNN talk about already and how they connected. It started with a desire, then she had faith, and all those other elements lead to organized planning. And we'll get back into this conversation on the other side.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the Mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of Step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. Go ahead, Galen.
This is a
Uh,
great chapter for us to get into, and great conversation for us to get into, especially when we are looking at goals and objectives that seem like they're a little bigger than what we can accomplish. And so that leads me to my first question for you, Miss Lynn, is how do you attack goals and objectives that you have that seem to be a little bit bigger than what you've done in the past? This idea of becoming an author when you've had maybe no one in your family who's ever written a book. This idea of becoming a speaker when I don't know that you've ever had anyone in your family or around you that were professional speakers. This idea of standing on a stage when it's just you and a microphone sharing your comedy. How do you organize a plan when that feat seems bigger than anything that you've done before? Where do you find that courage?
First, I think you just got to be, excuse me, I think you got to be a little crazy. Okay. First of all, that's the first criteria. Okay. But again, I thank you for that question, because not only did I not have anybody in my family that ever did anything like this, you have to understand, my mom went to the 11th grade. My father went to the 6th grade. He worked in a factory. I am the first college graduate in my family. So I think that it was something innate actually in me that just gave me that, especially when people said you can't do it. I'm one of them people to say, I'll show you kind of attitude and I'm going to do it. And if I don't do it, it's not going to be because I didn't try to do it. So I think because of the way I was brought in, I tell a story in my book, and I know Ann has heard this story before. When I was 6 years old, my mom died, and my father asked his youngest sister and her husband to take us in, Auntie and Uncle Jack. And so one day we were out driving, and because I was the youngest, I used to sit in the middle. Auntie would drive because Uncle Jack was blind and wasn't nobody giving him the wheel. So I would sit in the middle. And one day we were driving, and it started raining. And you know how it gets when it's so bad. And I could look out and I saw people start to pull over to the side of the road. But we kept driving. And the windshield wipers really weren't helping. It was raining so bad you could barely see. But Auntie kept driving. We got to an overpass and people were parked under the overpass. Auntie kept driving. As a 6-year-old, I got scared. And I just started screaming out, stop! We gonna die! Stop! And she just looked at me as calmly as she could. And she said, baby, you see them people pulled over to the side of the road? They don't know how long the storm gonna be here. But if we keep driving, eventually we're going to drive out of the storm. And so that was a life philosophy that she taught me. And so I think because I know that rough times are going to come and life is not always going to be easy, and even the plans you make can get interrupted, sometimes because of your decisions you make, sometimes because life happens. But you got to keep going forward. You can't be scared of moving forward. So I think that whole philosophy of not being scared in bad times translates for me to not being scared to do whatever it is you want to do and that you think you're able to do, even if you fail.
Wow.
So I hope that answered that question.
So, and now I see the crew that you run with. Now I see the like-minded people that you have around you. Back to you.
Well, Galen, you bring up a very important point about the crew that you run with, because when LYNN talked about organized plans, and Napoleon Hill shares in the first page of this principle, not the last page, not the middle of the chapter, but on the very first page, he says, if I can quote, in chapter 2, you were instructed to take 6 definite practical steps as your first move in translating the desire for money into its monetary equivalent. One of these steps is the formation of definite practical plans. But then he says the other step is to ally yourself with a group of as many individuals as you may find for the creation and carrying out of your plans for the accumulation of money, making use of the mastermind principle. And LYNN, yes, was a part of, yes, my very, 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 did I say very? Very, 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 very first mastermind group number 1. Yes. And so that was 19 something.
Right.
Yes. So when she talked about her journey coming to Palm Beach County and going to work at the city, now, Lynn, I'm starting to, this could be another podcast. We won't go into all those details because as soon as I started saying the city, all those other thoughts started coming up. That's not for today. But I do want to go back to what Galen says, because it is so powerful. He's a powerful person anyway.
Yes.
Right? Yes, he is. And his thoughts are intelligently organized. And so when he said, your crew you hang around, it is the greatest compliment, because LYNN, myself, and the other ladies who were part of that first mastermind group, we did not call it that. We did not know that's what we were doing. We just knew that in 1980 something, we started reading this book because Ann McNeil had read it in 79 and started sharing it and giving it to people like Sharon Jackson, Lynn Whitfield, and a lot of other people. And we just started reading the book. We all went to the same church together. And so when you go back now, and like was said by Steve Jobs, you can't really look forward until you connect until you connect the dots looking backwards. And so we had what we thought were plans, and because we were in the same church, we were lifting those plans, if you will, up to God, if you will, like Lynn said when she opened her comments. But we did not know what we did not know. We just did what this book said to do. And that was to come together, like-minded spirit, like-minded, number one, like-spirited, number two. And so, Lynn, I'd like to have you go back, if you will, to your first introduction, even though, we're tipping around it right now, but can you give us your thoughts? Take us back to your first introduction to this book, and then we'll get to the principle.
Okay, well, I'm be honest about it. Okay, so like Ann just told y'all, we were all in church. We all in the same church. And Ann McNeil actually was my prayer partner. We were in a group of young women. And so her and I were signed to be prayer partners. So Ann came up to me, and that was the original, the orange and green, the white book with the orange and green print on it, I probably still have it around here somewhere. And I was like, you got to read this. You got to read this book. And it's like, well, what's this book? This is about how you think and you grow rich and that. And I was completely new to that whole philosophy, mindset, anything. So, I'm like, what kind of hocus pocus kind of stuff is she trying to get me involved in?
Again, wait, Lynn, again,
right. What's she trying to get me involved with again, right? But I stopped and I said, well, you know what? And seemed to be doing all right. I mean, I didn't know any Black women doing construction. And, she doing all right. She got houses and, I'm still trying to make it and renting and things of that nature. So maybe it's something to this. So I started reading it and it started making sense. And then, it led to another book to read, and another book to read. And before you're a University of Success and I mean, all kinds of things. So it really opened my mind to a lot of stuff. Let me just say it like that. And, and even to the point where I know there are a lot of people out there who say, oh, well, you shouldn't be focused on making money and everything. And, the whole prosperity type stuff, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, you know what? This chapter on organized planning says we live in a capitalistic society. So you either going to be a part of the system and take advantage of the opportunities that are going to be presented to you to not only do service, but to get something for yourself, some profit for yourself, or you're going to be left behind. Because this is the country we live in. And if you don't like the country and that system, then leave. I mean, that was basically what he said in there. So that's what's my first thing was, I was like, I don't know about this. And I'll be honest with you, I have not done everything every year as Ann McNeil has, because there's only one Ann McNeil. But once you start doing it and practicing it, even if you don't do it every day or every week, it's in you. It's something that's ingrained and it will always be in your mind. And you will find that you're doing it even without putting the stuff on paper or stuff like that. So that was my first impression, Ann.
Right. I want to go to your plans for the future, and in particular, Lynn, your ideas centering around comedy. And so can you share with us your journey and your thoughts regarding that?
Well, as you know, I started doing comedy actually back in 2002. after what I call the worst year of my life. Dealing with a lot of family issues, death, grief, and things of that nature. And I remember telling my doctor if he didn't give me some pills, I was going to be a fat alcoholic. And actually, God used the comedy to bring me out of the depression I was in. And I did comedy from 2002 to 2006. And I mean, I never did, major TV, but I had some success with it. And I mean, people seemed to like it. And then I stopped because of work. Things got in the way. I decided to take a job that caused me to commute for an hour each way. And it was just getting back home too late to really do open mics or try to do shows. So I stopped. But people kept asking me, are you still doing comedy? People tried to hire me for private events. So I would do a couple. But then in the last couple of years, actually, I just kind of stopped. And no, I don't do it. I wouldn't take private events and everything. And then, but I was still in the speaking. That's what I was doing. I was trying to develop my speaking business too. But I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do humorous speaking, which is still going back to comedy, right? So this last fall, November, I did accept an event, and I did an event in December for a church, and it went very well. And then January, the first Saturday in January, I attended the IMA Mastermind annual conference down in Pompano Beach. And we were sitting at our table, and I can't even remember why or how it came about that Galen Bingham ended up at our table with his book, and he showed us his mastermind of great minds. And we got to talking, and somehow my comedy came up, and he said, so what you gonna do? So you need to do it. You need to just make plans and do it. And that was a motivator, to say the least. And since then, I have been, soon after that, I started telling people I'm doing comedy again. I did my pastor's anniversary like that next week. Actually, on my birthday, I did my pastor's anniversary birthday little skit. And since then, I've been doing open mics. Some open mics have contests, and I've won a couple of spots to appear on the Saturday shows as a guest spot. Somebody else who saw me in open mic said, hey, come do a guest spot at my show down in Fort Lauderdale. And I went, and he surprised me and actually gave me a check, like a piece of money that I did not expect. It wasn't, anything big, but still, I can say that in 6 months of deciding to go back and do comedy, I have made at least a $20 fee. So, but now I'm listed on gig salary. I mean, so I am really moving forward with this. And I realized last week, I think it was, when you were talking about your businesses, you were telling me your 3 or 4 or 5 businesses. I realized, I said, but Lynn, you don't have to be just one facet. You can be a speaker, you can be a comedian, you can still do trial advocacy training for people. You can still speak to bar associations about how to make law your profession and not your life, and how to, take care of yourself, your self-care. So I'm, moving into all of those, but I am back doing comedy. I love it. And I'm just moving forward. I'm asking God to, show me the plans, let the Holy Spirit bring me the plans, and understanding now that the plans I make at first may not work. I had a young woman who said she was going to be able to help me get some gigs with bar associations. I sent her the video finally and stuff, and she says, I'm swamped at work. Sorry, I can't do that. So I got to switch. Okay, so that's not going to stop me from pursuing it. I'm not going to take that as just a no, not to pursue it. I'm going forward.
I am really curious because very often we think, especially with comedy, we think, wow, my cousin is really funny. He could be a comedian. And there's a whole lot more. There's more to becoming. Just because you bake a good pound cake doesn't mean you should open up a bakery, right? So talk a little bit about the organized planning that goes into crafting an actual comedy set that
Mm.
most professional comedians make it seem like it's just top of mind, that there is just stream of consciousness. They make it appear that way. But I can tell from your expression right now, it's not stream of consciousness. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. Talk a little bit about the difference between being, yeah, the difference
You can,
between being a funny cousin and being an actual paid comedian.
well, I think that you have to have the ability to be funny, to be a comedian. I mean, so even though cousin is funny, does not mean that he can't transition that into being on stage. So I always tell people, try it. There's open mics. Go up and try it. For me, I think it entails a lot more because I do clean comedy. So I do no profanity and no explicit sexual material. So that requires me to think. And I actually got a big compliment a week or so ago after I did a set at this dive. It was a dive bar too, a real dive bar. But the guy came up to me afterwards. He said, "You know what I like about your comedy? You make me think." And to me, that's a compliment because it's so easy to throw out the profanity. It's so easy to throw out the sexual content. I mean, how many jokes can you tell and hear about that? People's private parts. Come on now. After a while, it gets to be like, okay, it ain't funny no more. But it is because you have to really think about, and I'll take a premise, and it may take me, you know, a month of working on that premise before I'll ever get up on stage and do it. And I go to there's a comedian who does a live stream every Tuesday on Instagram, and I try to go to those to listen and to give my work out there and get some input from her and from others on how I can turn. Like I was doing a bit about I do a bit about LGBTQA plus. And I was doing it because there's a whole lot of other stuff out there we don't even think about. We think of transsexual and everything, but there's a thing called object sexuals. So I was starting it out, and I have changed the opening several times. But when I got on with her and started it, she was laughing, but then she stopped me and she said, "Are you gay?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you gonna have to, before you can start this bit, you got to make it clear to the people you're not making fun of gays, that you are." So she helped me in getting that out and helped me change it. So you have to work on it, because when you get on that stage, it's you and the mic. It's not like a singer who's got the music in the background, and if they forget the words, at least the music's still going. It's you. Okay. And so it takes a lot of preparation. But you know what? That I'm not new to that. I was a trial lawyer. So before you got in that courtroom to present that case, it took preparation. It took, planning how you were going to present it. And even when you're doing comedy, what joke are you going to tell first? What's the lineup going to be of your set? So there are books and things that you can read that will help you in doing that. But I do think it starts with you haven't been funny to begin with. I mean, I think I was funny when I was growing up. In fact, I don't know why I didn't win class clown, really, because I thought I voted for me for class clown. I guess nobody else did.
Gotcha. Well, I love that story because in that story we saw obviously the preparation, we saw the faith, we saw some natural inclination, but we saw preparation. We saw getting with Mastermind and developing your craft. And as I said before, it takes a whole lot more to doing a thing than getting out there and doing it. I had a conversation last week with a group where I shared that amateurs will spend 10 to 20% of their time practicing at best, and then 80% of their time in the game, trying to do well in the game. Professionals will spend 80% of their time practicing and then 20% of their time in the game, and that's why we marvel at what they do, because of all the preparation, all the organized planning, and that was just a great example of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you know, I think I posted something on Instagram with a thing that said Cat Williams was right, you got to work your craft. You know, and especially when you're just starting out, because you know, people, when you start talking about getting them paid and getting money, people, you got to have at least 15 minutes of good material, you know, preferably up to 45 to 60 minutes, but it's hard to get up there on stage and talk for 60 minutes. So that's why you have to look at the comedians. But, you know, the other thing is you got to keep adding and changing, and you know, so it takes constant work. I can't come up, let's say I have a 45-minute set. I can't do that set for the next 5 years, you know, just do the same set for the next 5 years. I can't do that, because after a while you're going to be repeating to the same audience, and they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, she did that last year. And you have comedians out there who are like that, and you will hear people say, oh, that's the same show he did last year, you know, and he ain't changed nothing. No, I ain't going to see him. But so it's constantly and planning. And so now it's even planning on, where am I going to put my promo kit? Where is that going to get me the much? How am I going to promote the child advocacy training business? You know, how do I get, so I'm planning that. So I had to go through the, you know, the one sheet, you know, making up the one sheet, doing the perspective, I don't know, the proposal to send out to the agencies. And I'm gonna tell y'all, AI, I love me some AI now. Because they will help you. And it sounds so good. I was like, oh, that's exactly what I meant. But that helps. But you can't do that with comedy. Believe me, AI can't tell your jokes for you. So you got to write them yourself.
Galen, I want to, while we're on this comedy subject, LYNN said something that was so powerful. I want to make sure we don't miss it. And when she shared about sitting at the table with you during the annual meeting in January, there's no accident that, going back to what Napoleon Hill shares when he says, you know, you must have the advantage of the experience, education, native ability, and imagination of others. This is in harmony with the methods followed by everyone who has accumulated great fortune. And when you talk about masterminding and you talk about the annual meeting, I think that LYNN would be best to share with our audience about her experience, like she just shared, starting with you, Galen, about why do you think, LYNN, it is important that people register? Galen's going to share the JPEG on the website for the annual meeting. But LYNN, you've been here with me literally from the very beginning, and you've seen the growth. You had an experience, not at this annual meeting, but the year before, when you came back and you opened your envelope and you read what you wrote years prior. I'm not gonna tell it all. I'm not gonna tell it all, but can you share? We're talking about organized plans, and a lot of times we don't think that a plan could simply be a paragraph. I plan to do this, whatever it is. But can you share with the audience, why do you think it's important for them to register and join us at the annual meeting, and your experience a couple of years ago when you opened that envelope?
Okay. Thank you, Anne. And I don't remember exactly what I had written years ago, but I know when I opened that envelope, I realized that it had been done, that I had accomplished that. And, you know, without actually thinking about it, you know, put it down and then you just start moving forward. The annual meeting in the first Saturday of January is so important, I believe, for people to attend. One, because even if you have never been involved with Mastermind, you're going to learn so much about the whole principle, the whole process of and it's going to motivate you, because so often we are isolated in our cities and our towns because we don't know people who are like-minded as we are. And so we don't know how to reach them. When you come to the annual meeting, you will connect with someone who is like-minded, who may live in your area, and who you can then start applying these principles with. You see this picture, all these beautiful people, men and women. We are all there encouraging each other. You get ideas. You see, I'm back to doing comedy just because I was at that meeting and someone encouraged me to do it, and to go forth and do it. So I'm hoping that everyone who's listening, you will not only attend, register now too, because it's going to sell out. So please, and I know there may be some people saying, well, that's a little, the price is a little high. How much is too much to invest in you and in your future and in your family's future? Because this is not just about you. This is something, if you follow Ann McNeil, you can get your whole family, and it can change the whole trajectory of your family, of your children. I wish that I had something like this when I was growing up. Fortunately, I didn't even have anybody who could encourage me. And that's one of the things, and I don't know if I spoke to you about this, but I've been going back and trying to think, is this comedy thing, was this something that just developed as an adult, or was this something that was there as a child? So I started asking my sister and them, well, what did I used to do? One sister said, oh, you were just a show off. I just thought you were a show off all the time. I said, okay, that was it. I was supposed to be an entertainer. I said, I got my plans switched up, but it's okay. God let me go ahead and do this stuff, and it was good. But I finally got back to what I think I'm really supposed to be doing, is bringing laughter to people and showing people you can have a good time. Even if you're a lawyer, you can laugh. So,
Laughing lawyers, laughing lawyers. I love it. I love it. I love it. So if you go to the internationalmasterminders.com website, Galen showed the JPEG on the screen, you can register to join us. And like Lynn said, it's the first Saturday, which is January 3rd and 4th. That Friday, we have what I call an open mic, for lack of better words, we call it. It's a founder's reception where people just come and they're able to share their wins for the year. And the following day, on Saturday, we start promptly at 8 o'clock, because the day will go so fast. It will go so fast, and we wrap up about 3 or 4. But the benefit of why you should come, it is that place where you're able to bring your life in writing to begin that process of living a better organized life, but starting with writing those goals. And like Lynn was sharing, and I remember very, very vividly, at the very end of each meeting, we have you write a letter to yourself. We give you the form, you just fill it out. It basically says that by this date, whatever the date is, you will have accomplished 2 or 3 different things. Well, Lynn wrote that and came back years later and opened that envelope and realized that she had achieved every single thing that she wrote. And so again, my desire on our behalf of the International Mastermind Association, which is a not-for-profit organization, the desire is to create a space, and like Lynn said, men and women, because this is about the family, and we do encourage all of us to create family goals. Lynn, we're going to go around and do a round robin wrap up. And we're going to start with Galen. Any takeaways? I have my notes here, my ahas from what you shared. And it doesn't matter how close we are to our friends. We always want to have the opportunity to give honor where honor is due. And sometimes we can be so very close to each other that we don't really do that in a way that elevates. And so, Lynn, as your friend, I really want to take this opportunity to just express to you how honored I am and how excited I am for your journey and everything that you're doing, that you've desired to do and that you are doing as you elevate others. I mean, we could go through a lot of different things between the brain surgery and all of those other things that you've utilized your humor to help others get through and to help yourself get through. And I think that there's such a phenomenal space and place for you in that. So we want to honor you in that, and thank you so much for joining us today. But Galen's going to come and he's going to share any kind of takeaways, how we can connect with him, and then we're going to wrap up with you, and then we're going to talk about the need to bring you back. Galen?
Yeah, oh my gosh. This has been a great conversation because it really talks to the power of the subconscious. And, you know, I talk a lot with my clients that the conscious brain can control all kinds of analysis. You can remember all kinds of things. You can learn almost anything. But the subconscious is what controls behavior. So, you know, Lynn talked about that mastermind meeting or that annual meeting. It was already put into her subconscious who she wanted to be and what she wanted to do. And so she didn't have to consciously think about it anymore. She found that her life kept moving in the direction of what her subconscious already knew that she wanted to do. And that's what I enjoy about this process. We show you through this Think and Grow Rich process how to inform your subconscious about the things that you want to accomplish. And so, Lynn, just thank you so much for bringing this together in a way that demonstrates that this is more about just accumulating money. This is about how do you accomplish those things that you say that you want to accomplish, but doing it on purpose as opposed to accidentally. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist. You can find me in so many different places. I encourage you to go to my website, killglobalcoaching.com, KILN globalcoaching.com, or galenbingham.com. And you'll have access to all of my resources. You also have access to my podcast called Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We talk to leaders literally all over the world about the whiskeys they drink, the music they listen to, and what they think it really takes to be an effective leader. I double dog dare you to try us at least once. Guarantee you that you will learn at least something that will get you closer to achieving your dreams. This has been a great show, and it's been great hanging out with you, Lynn. And I'm going to defer my management fee for encouraging you to get back into this. I'm just going to put that back into the kitty.
Thank you.
All right, Lynn, if you want to share with the audience, how can people connect with you? And if you have any special programs, books, or projects that you'd like to share.
Yes, thank you very much. You can email me at VennieLynn, that's VENNIELYNN 432 at gmail.com. I do have a book. It's called The Party's Not Over Until God Says So, My Journey of Driving Through the Storms. And you can purchase that from my website at LYNNWHITFIELD.com and go to books and publications, and you can get that book. And my other book, which is 101 Black Pearls of Wisdom, or the free download of 9 Steps to Overcoming the Shame of Failure, because we all go through that shame when we fail, and I try to help you with that. If you want to book me for comedy, you can just call me at 561-850-7178, or you can catch me on my YouTube channel, which is VennieLynn. I have some videos up there if you just want to laugh sometime, or come and catch me at an open mic. Follow me on Facebook at Lynn Whitfield, or Instagram at No Trash Comedy. And that's how you get in touch with me.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. We want to thank everybody in the chat. Wyman, as always, has been very active. Wyman says, what an incredible, wonderful spirit. Lynn, thank you for taking a few minutes to share your story with us this morning. City to Inspire said, I was focused The time just zoomed by. Yes, it did. Also shares, it is our job to sow seed. God gets the harvest. Galen, thanks for living the example. Collaborate, find others who are successful, and learn. And every one of you that has joined us this morning, we really want to continue to thank you because we do this for the opportunity to encourage, inspire, and uplift utilizing this philosophy, but just helping people to understand how do you have a better quality of life. These are 13 principles that help us to do that. And as we come on and share special guests, they are living these principles as an example. And so every Saturday, each of you that come on, Doretha, Colette, all of you, Imelda, everybody, Diane, all of you that come on and share, Carla, all of you, thank you so very much for sharing. I want to just share that for me, everything that we've been discussing regarding the organized plans, oftentimes you may ask, well, what do I start? And I was just, while Lynn was talking, I just went back to my book, How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. I give you the plans on page 11, yes, 11, 12, 13, in a survey, which you can use the survey to actually begin to document your plans. And I've made a commitment, as you know, Lynn, every Friday when we do our Think and Grow Rich Friday accountability, I said, I'm going to share this philosophy, this process, this book. I had a friend that said to me, Ann, you know, just imagine, and this is what really moved me to action, because I wrote this book years ago. I have 5 books that I've written, actually publishing another one with Dr. Mia Merritt next month, but I don't promote them. But I've made a commitment to do so after my friend shared this story. They said, you know, Ann, just imagine, you know, you had a family member that had an incurable disease and you had the antidote and you did not share it. How would you feel? More importantly, how would they feel? That's what your process has created. That's what you've documented in these books, and you don't share it. And that convicted me so much that I had to get over whatever that struggle, that challenge, that block that I have personally with not promoting my own process and my own procedure, but also the remedy that so many people come on and talk about and share how what I've done has helped them, but then I've documented and I don't share it. And Galen, you might remember when we had, and you joined his program, the guy from NSA, oh, his name just escaped me, Galen, and he pulled out my book, the manual, and he had the pages were all torn out. And oh, help me, Galen, what's his name? I need to write this down. From
Jeffrey Heislett?
NSA, Jeffrey Hazlett.
Yeah.
He had all of my books. He had them all. He had them all. And he talked about the benefits. The same thing with Les Brown that came on and talked about it to the motivator. And so I'm sharing these testimonials of mine to just share with each and every one of you. We're all on this journey together. There's no little I's, there's no big U's, there's none of that. We're all on the journey together. Galen, myself, and Peter, we just committed to come on and share and bear our stories and our testimonials and our journeys with all of you to help all of us be accountable to each other every single week. But I will challenge you that if you're interested in having a better quality of life in every area of your life, you can connect with me by texting the number 59925, 59925, and put the word "and," that's my name, ANN, in the chat. And I would ask you to pray for all of us as we continue to pray for you on this journey of thinking and growing richer. And remember, like Galen said, please remember to subscribe, but also click that little bell button on YouTube so that we can continue to provide the quality of individuals and podcasts for others to enjoy. All right, so Galen, Lynn, not sure if you have anything else before we wrap up.
But thank you for having me this morning. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yes, thank you for having us on Thank us for having you on this side of the camera, because usually on the other side, the other side in the, now you're in the studio. So yes, man, so glad to have you, my friend. I feel it an honor to call you my friend. We've gone through a lot together.
Yes, we have.
Yes, we'll continue to do so. So many blessings to you. Galen, anything else from you before we wrap up? Might be on mute.
Nope, all is good.
Okay. All right, off camera. All right, everybody, we will see you next time. And remember, continue to